In 2019, Arnold called me and said, I think I know what our next project is. We need to document Europe, because I predict that Europe is going to make really big changes. When we started this project, we thought that 10 years is a long period to document a continent. Now, after 4 years, we realize that 10 years is very short to document a continent. This is a very loaded, a very politically loaded era in which we live. And it's going to influence the way we look at these images and these stories we make right now for the future, and that's why it's so relevant. But we don't only want to make historical work that is important in 100 years. We also want to make impact now. My name is Rob Hornstra and I'm a photographer. I live in Utrecht in the Netherlands, and from there I mainly work on long-term projects, long-term storytelling. I did a project in Sochi, the region around the Olympic Winter Games in 2014, and worked there for 5 years, and now I'm working on a project in Europe that will last from 2020 to 2030, I guess. But it might be a little bit longer. In 2008, I finished a project in Russia titled 101 Billionaires. I worked for 2 years on that project, and I saw many dark places all over Russia, actually, contrasting with the extreme abundant wealth of the super small part of rich people in Russia. Then writer Arnold van Brugge, he approached me and said, I think we have to work in the region around Sochi, Russia, once again, to work towards the Olympic Winter Games in 2014. It became Putin's pet project. He really wanted to show the world what Russia was capable of. So it became the most expensive Olympic Games ever. We thought in 2009, either this could go into a more open and democratic country, which we were hoping for, or Putin is really using it to distract from what his real plans are. Nowadays, we know what kind of direction it became, but in 2009 we didn't know, so we were very open. We started making stories in the region around Olympic Winter Games, the Olympic stadiums. There was a lot of tourism, Russian tourism, but immediately in the backyard you had the North Caucasus, and that's the most violent and the poorest region in Russia. It was a smart decision to start in 2009, because when we were banned and couldn't make any stories, which was half 2013, Russia also closed all the areas. And reporters, journalists from whatever country were not allowed to make any stories in that region, only within the Olympic bubble. We were practically the only ones having those stories. I come from an area and a family, a Catholic area and family, where there's not a lot of interest in art. I never went to museums as a child. On the other hand, what I learned while becoming a little bit older is that if you don't fit into this Roman Catholic community, then you're being considered easily as outcast, as the ones who are weird. And I started doubting this very much because I learned that these weirdos in my village were actually not that weird. That's exactly where I want to play a role with my photography. I find it extremely relevant and important to show, in the first place, to my parents and to the Roman Catholic community where I come from, that there are different communities that they never get in contact with. For example, Muslims. Well, let's make a series about Muslims and show it to them. So maybe we can even force a connection between these people. Maybe we can even force an event that they meet each other. I think that's so extremely important in society nowadays, and that's so extremely lacking as well. And that's where I can play a role as a photographer, and that's my goal. So when I was thinking about graduation plans in 2003, I told my teachers that I wanted to do a series abroad, and they disliked it. They warned me, they said, if you go there, you can only go once, and I wanted to go to Russia. And if things go wrong, you can't go back. You don't have money to go back, and so it's a very stupid decision. But it stuck in my mind, and I thought, like, how can I solve this? I need to make lots of work, and not only focusing on the things that I have in my mind, but to go further beyond these kind of. So I made my first lists of people or groups of people that I wanted to capture in the document to prevent that I was flying home without things that I actually also needed to photograph. I made my list, I brought these lists, but it was not too big. I produced lots of work and I could make different edits, etc., etc. So I was happy, and my teachers were also happy. They were surprised how much work I made in this month. So I had these lists, and the next trip I thought, that was a good system. I'm going to expand it a little bit. And this happened all over again. I made it bigger and bigger. I like it, for some reason, to do it. So it became a real category on my lists as well. So while working, the categories were created. This is all based on August Sander, a big inspiration to me, not only because of his working method, but also because of his portraits. I really like his portraits a lot. And while shooting portraits, he also started realizing that some of those portraits fitted into certain categories, like the butcher, the baker, he has very interesting categories, the wealthy. But yeah, that's very similar to his way of working as well, I think. Although I met his great-grandson, and he immediately started shouting at me like, who do you think that you work in the way that my great-grandfather did, and blah, blah, blah. And I thought like, well, okay, yeah. For me, a single photograph doesn't mean anything. It's always a sequence. It's always a series of photographs. It's storytelling. And although anyone in the world can take a picture, and also a good picture, and not many people are capable of good editing or telling a comprehensive story, those kind of things. think I try to make it less photographic, although it is of course super photographic, it is a photograph. But when it's about the shadows or the composition too much, that's also why my people are, the people in my images are always in the center. It shouldn't be about composition too much. All these kind of artistic forms and whatsoever, for me it's about the people. And that's why I like outcast more than Cartier-Bresson. And that's why I went into that direction. It's about the people and the background and not about the shadows or the lightning for me. We decided to work in the 20s on the Europeans because we believed in 2019, when we started this project, that it is a very important decade, that this is what we call a decade of drastic changes in Europe. It's not about the geography, it's more about the theme that is relevant to other places in Europe as well. And that's what we do by working in what we call the periphery of Europe, places that are not very often in the spotlight of news or touristic places. If we go in England to the Black Country, to Birmingham and Dudley, then it's about a former mining, a former industrial area that is now totally run down. If we call it the Black Country in England, then people immediately think like that's England, it's all kind of prejudice. But the story being told over there is totally adaptable to places in the south of the Netherlands, Belgium, France, in Germany, in Poland, all these former mining areas or industrial areas that are run down nowadays and need to be built up. So for us the story is not about England, nor it's about Birmingham or Dudley. It is about a story that is adaptable to other stories in Europe. And if we go to the Basque Country, it's about autonomy. But the desire to become autonomous is not a desire only in the Basque Country, isn't it? That's also the Catalan country, but that's also in places in the Netherlands, and etc. So we go to a place, but we try to bring an European story. Why do you need to know whether it's Eastern Europe or Western Europe? At the moment you know it's Eastern Europe, former Eastern Europe, then you have all kind of prejudice regarding that place. The places are beautiful, the people are beautiful over there. The question is, why are so many people over there voting nationalist or populist parties? And that's what we try to understand and document and capture. A national identity is, in a way, nothing, but it's an artificial way of creating your own group. And I don't believe in this concept. It doesn't make any sense. It only creates enemies. So let's not focus on the small, minor little differences, but let's look at the big similarities and the big historical background that we share together. More and more we realize that we don't have to explain what we mean with drastic changes, but 5 years ago people were looking at us and thinking and saying, like, what are you talking about? Drastic changes 2020, 2030, why? What's on actually? And of course we already had Brexit, England, and we had quite a populist, nationalist regime in Poland, for example, and in Hungary. But it was still being seen as that's the outside of Europe, the borders of Europe. That's not really our problem here in Western Europe, in the mid-Europes. We know that it's different now. to shoot images. There is some things I can influence, but not too much. But the real power in an image is the coincidence, I think. It's just what you get on the spot. It's just the background should be good, but also what's super important is how people look in the lens. And sometimes I shoot an image and a person is looking perfectly, but the background wasn't that good. And I go back, I try to remake that image, and you never get this gaze in his face again. I don't know how it works. I just can't control it. And this magic, this kind of coincidence, the moment, the gaze, probably the emotion or the feeling that is there, the background, all these things have to be perfect. And then there might be an image that is worth saving for years, but it hardly ever happens, unfortunately. I think I shoot maybe somewhere between 3 and 7 good images a year. When I work on projects, like the real part of making work, I have a lot of doubts actually. That's I think part of being an artist or a photographer. I am not a procrastinator. I'm not a person who is diving away for it. Although in the morning I just want to jump back into my bed and put blankets over my head and think like, oh God, today is going to be a failure and whatever. But that's part of being an artist, isn't it? Like in the end you have to embrace it. You have to embrace all these insecurities and go for it. So get out of your bed, pick up your camera and just go. You never know what to expect. There are always days that you fail or that you do stupid things or that there is nothing to photograph or whatsoever. But the next day might be better. And there are not so many days in a lifetime to make photographs. So when I have a day, then I really want to make use of it. I'm not allowed to say like, hey, today is not my day, or I want to cry, or whatsoever. That's not relevant. Go, produce. And I have one thing that's really to my favor. I don't like traveling. I'm homesick, I don't like traveling. So I'm not there for fun. And many people who see my job or are inspired and also want to be a photographer who is traveling in Europe or wherever, they like traveling. And that's not good for your work, actually. You shouldn't like traveling. It's work, and go for it. And the only thing that matters is production. My motivation is to bring a story and to bring people closer to each other. What if we are starting a real conversation, starting to listen to those people, really listen, and start to understand why they are actually voting nationalist parties, because they are angry, and where their anger comes from, and is it a real anger? And I don't say that it's all that it's all logic or that we can explain it or whatsoever. There are a lot of conspiracy theories and a lot of lies as well. But start talking to fishermen, for example, being bothered by EU regulations, and if I hear their story, I understand why they are angry and I understand why they are anti-EU. That's what we have to do, I think. We have to get closer to each other, and I hope that this project, the Europeans, is going to play a role in it. And I realize that we are not television documentary makers who have a much wider reach. But if we can do it on a small scale, if we can bring a change, if we can bring people closer, then it's good.